Hello, this is a disclaimer before this episode. I've had numerous people in person and on the internet tell me I should let Randee talk more in the podcast. I understand that, but we're going to do a special podcast. I'm going to explain to each and every one of you interneters why I do most of the talking. Hi. This week's topic is the original Star Trek.
Are you out of your mind? Okay. Well, let's get to it. I have nothing. Oh my God. Hi, this is Talking Sci-Fi. I'm just Randee, and this is a mime. Is it mime? Meme? Mime? Oh my God. This is going to be disastrous. Okay, so we're going to talk about the original Star Trek. It came out around 1936, I believe, and I don't know anything about the original Star Trek. This is crazy. Okay, all right. So I have been watching a few of the episodes, and I guess the Cage is the first one. And what really confused me about that, Sean, is the actors changed, and I have no clue why, and it makes no sense. And I feel like they pulled one over my eyes. I have no clue what to say. This is disastrous. Can we talk about Big Trouble in Little China? Let me see here. I have no clue what to say. You put me on the spot. You're going to have to get rid of the tape. Really? I have no clue.
I hope this has proven a point to you naysayers. When we film these episodes, they're off the cuff. Randee is the sidekick. I am the talker. So, are you all right?
I'm fine.
Did you take your Valium before the show?
I did.
Okay. So,
but here's the deal.
I give you time to prepare sometimes, but we always pick subjects that Randee is kind of a little bit knowledgeable on. Like, what do you mention all the time? The one with the bit invisible girl, the dude, where's my car?
Oh my
and
God.
I'm always talking about Star Trek, so I just shut up about it. And whatever, Back to the Future, some vampire movie I've never heard of or something. So, this is what I'm trying to prove to you people out there. I am the host. He is the co-host.
That's right.
It's the way we got it set up. So, MC Spidey, you know who I'm talking about, and other people that have said something to me in person or whatever, this is why Randee doesn't do all the talking.
Absolutely.
It's not that he's not knowledgeable. He's very intelligent. He puts this podcast on. So, hope you guys had a nice little entertaining tutorial on This is Talking Sci-Fi with Sean and just Randee. All right, so original Star Trek.
Let's talk about it. I know a lot about it.
Do you? Then why didn't you just talk about it just a minute ago? I mean, seriously.
I don't know anything.
See, most of the time, Randee is just laughing during the podcast, which is great because it's perfect. It's Ed McMahon and Johnny Carson all over again.
It is.
All right, The Cage was filmed twice.
Okay.
Because when the first original series came out, it was black and white.
Right.
They added color to it. They called it The Cage, and it was about the true captain of the Starship Enterprise, Captain Christopher Pike. Okay, and that was played by Jeffrey Hunter.
Real quick, do you think he is upset that he didn't carry on that role?
Yes. So he's passed away now, but the reason why he gave up the role of Captain Pike is because his wife told him, Jeffrey, you're not going to go anywhere with this Star Trek nonsense. So he said, you're right. So he went into doing Westerns, is which he originally came from. That's where Gene Roddenberry found him from. So thank you, Mrs. Hunter, for ruining a man's career. We really appreciate being behind your husband that much. Great. So the search went on to find Captain Kirk. And the producers and Gene Roddenberry and everybody went looking for all types of actors. They talked to, not just for Captain Kirk, they looked to Jack Lord from Hawaii Five-0 fame, Bookham Dano, that guy, to become Captain Kirk. They went and even approached listen to this. Clint Eastwood to be Mr. Spock.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Turned it down immediately. A lot of people don't know that. But anyway.
Would you have liked that?
No.
No, I was like, first, no, that's not, that wouldn't work.
Almost all the actors, other than Shatner and, of course, Jeffrey Hunter, which was Captain Pike, had roles in other television shows and other like westerns.
Right.
The guy that plays Bones, which is darn it, what's his name? DeForest Kelley. He was a big western star.
Yeah.
They found him. Spock had been in a lot, or Leonard Nimoy had been in a lot of episodes of different things as well, and that's where they put all these people together. So to make this big, diverse original cast. So they decided that they filmed The Cage. They did the whole episode. They showed it to the producers at CBS, the people that are trying to get you to pay for Star Trek now with Discovery and Picard. Did this. I want to make this very clear. I'm not a big fan of CBS. The CBS officials, the big wigs, I got my big star and my monocle. They didn't think America was smart enough to get the Cage episode because it was too, what was the word they used? Too mind wrapping, or they didn't think that America was smart enough to understand the Cage, which was the first Star Trek. So they trashed the pilot. Didn't even I don't even think they even showed it on television.
Oh, okay.
So they went back and they come up with the new captain, which is James Tiberius Kirk, played by, of course, William Shatner. And the very first episode of Star Trek that premiered on CBS back in 1966, late 66, it was almost 67. It was September. Was a episode called The Man Trap, and we talked about it on the vampire episode where the salt-sucking vampire comes up and attacks the crew and all that. So that was the first episode, which was actually the third episode of Star Trek they filmed. Okay. They finally got to Where No Man Has Gone Before, which actually should have been the first premiere, but of course, again, they thought people wouldn't get it, so they wanted to hook them because there's gun shooting and fighting and all this stuff in The Man Trap, okay? And people like Randee nowadays like that action and stuff. So if you ever get a chance, watch that episode. So they decided they didn't want to get rid of all this footage of The Cage, so they made an episode, I think it was like 4 or 5 in, if I'm not mistaken. I made a 2-part episode called The Menagerie. Cage, Menagerie, it's all stuff like that. So they did a big flashback thing to The Cage with Jeffrey Hunter, and they Spock kind of, I don't want to give away anything, everybody's seen it. Spock goes and wants to get Captain Pike, who has been injured in a really bad radiation accident, and he's bound to a wheelchair. He's in a wheelchair, he's all burnt up, and he has that little dot, and it goes, he can only answer yes or no with it. So, are you okay, Captain Pike? Boop. And that would be it. And it goes, and 1 beep for yes, 2 beeps for no. So if he would, it goes, do you have to go to the bathroom, Captain Pike? Boop. Poop. See what I did there?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. All right. So that's what so Spock gets him, mutinies against the entire crew of the Enterprise, steals the Enterprise, goes to Talos 4. And if you watch Discovery Season 2, they revisit this a little bit. They screw it up completely, but you get the idea. They actually start the beginning of the episode with the Thelosians, which is what the Talos 4 people are called, with a thing where they flash back to the Menagerie. So, because they're trying so hard to connect this disco, or STD as I like to call it, Star Trek Discovery, to original Star Trek, which has nothing. There's some similarities. Now, Season 2 is a little bit better than 1, and I mean by little, I mean this big. So anyway, Menagerie. It turns out to be a 2-part episode. They find out that Spock is not mutiny. He was trying to help Captain Pike, and because on the Thelosians, which are these guys here, big brain, got an itch in your ear. So they can control people's minds because the way that they live is through other people's fantasies. It's like their stories. So if Thelosian had Randee, and Randee is rebuilding his car, his Mustang, which he has an awesome Mustang, 67? 66? Timing with Star Trek.
Yeah.
So they'd come and they'd get in your mind and actually be like in a hologram in your mind of you building your car, and your enjoyment makes them happy. So that's the Thelosians for you.
Let me say something real quick.
Sure.
So I went back and I watched the original Cage.
Okay.
Do Trekkies hate that episode? Because I really enjoyed it.
No, Trekkies like it. I mean, it had its ups and downs, and that's why they did the menagerie, because they wanted to not throw that footage away. It was all money saving thing.
Right. All right. So Kirk, he kind of went through the same situation with, what'd you call them?
Thelosians.
Thelosians. Okay.
No, he had nothing to do with them.
So
Spock had all to do with them.
All right. So what is the episode where I thought it was James T. Kirk, and the girl looks beautiful in his mind.
No, that was the Cage.
Oh, that's the original.
Yes, you're talking about Vina.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
in Captain Pike's mind,
that's right.
They're making Vina, who turns out to be an Orion slave girl, and all the green girl dancing. Well, it turns out that on this planet of Talos 4, the ship had crashed, and there was only one survivor, and it was the daughter of one of the scientists, and she got so messed up,
and they didn't know how to put her together.
They'd never seen a human being before, so they had to put her back. So they made her all monster. But in Pike's mind and Kirk's mind, she was this beautiful lady,
right?
Because that's what they were projecting, because they were trying to live vicariously through Pike.
So that was Pike that was on the horse farm having a picnic with her.
Yes, that was Captain Pike.
Okay,
yes.
All right.
Yep. Did you like the Cage?
Oh, I loved it.
Because they were having all different species locked up like a zoo, a menagerie, if you will, or a cage, if you will.
And he brought in some of the girls from the Enterprise.
Ship. Yep. His first officer, number 1, played by Majel Barrett, was brought down.
Trying to make him fall in love and have sex.
Yes, because they wanted to use them as farm animals, so they reproduce, but so they could live vicariously through their children.
Right, and that monster stuck the hand through the wall, and he was able to get the gun from him.
Yep, and that wasn't a monster; it was a Thelosian trying to trick him.
And she decided to stay because in her mind she was beautiful.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
So then Pike and them leave on the Enterprise. Then years later, Pike has this accident. It burns him and makes him deformed, puts him in the wheelchair. So the Thelosians let Spock know, hey, bring him to us, and we'll take care of him, and he can live out the rest of his life in a fantasy world.
Okay.
And it'll help their species and everything else. Now, the Thelosians' minds are so powerful, they can reach hundreds of millions of miles.
Yeah.
So Starfleet rendered Talos 4, you can't approach it or go near it. It's got a ban on it because they don't want people to get sucked in with these guys. In all actuality, when you watch the Thelosian episode on Star Trek Discovery Season 2, they're not portrayed as bad guys.
Okay.
Because they're not bad guys. It's just the way that their species works and all that.
Do you know what one of my favorite scenes from the Cage is?
What?
Is when they've using all that firepower trying to bust the door down in the cage, and the cage door stays in their mind. Stays the same.
But really, they've ripped the top of the mountain off, and there they are.
Yeah.
It's a great episode, and I'm sorry that it didn't get as much fanfare as all the rest of them do. Now, you watched another couple episodes of original Star Trek. I think you watched Doomsday Machine, didn't you? The one with the big giant cylinder thing that flies around and shoots a laser. It looks like the cornucopia from Thanksgiving. You told me you were watching that. And they had the captain on the other ship. He's like, they beam down, and he's like the last guy on the ship, and the ship's all ripped to pieces. The saucer section's cut in half and all this. And he's like... I beamed all the crew down when it attacked to the third planet. And Kirk goes, there is no third planet. And he goes, don't you think I know that? That's Lori's favorite.
Oh, is it?
Don't you think I know that? And it drove him crazy. He became obsessed with destroying the Doomsday Machine, which is a planet killer.
Right.
It was designed to fight an alien species that was more powerful than the species that created the Doomsday Machine. And if you read the Star Trek novels, which I say there's a Next Generation novel called... the name leaves it from me. It's one of my favorite authors. Peter David wrote it, and it's all about this race that invented these tube things in that episode to fight the Borg from Next Generation.
Right, okay.
So you got it's a great book to read, but yes.
One of the other episodes that I really liked is they bring in this kid. I can't remember if it was from another starship, and they bring in this kid, and he does mind games.
Charlie X.
Yes, that was a very good episode.
He passed away not too long ago, the actor. The name leaves me, of course.
Wow, he seems young in them episodes.
Yeah, well, he was, but that was 60. He was probably in his late teens.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. But Charlie X was they did not know this at the time, but a species from another kind of dimension kind of a situation.
Oh, okay.
So, which had no love, no friendship, no emotions or whatsoever,
Right.
just plain. So, Charlie X, they made him a humanoid so that he could come and explore what it was like. And it went crazy because, of course, he had Q or Lopan like powers.
Right.
I wish I would have brought Lopan down so we know who we're talking about. There's this Q doll that I have. You can't see, it's off camera, and Randy's simple mind thinks it's Lopan from Big Trouble in Little Chinatown.
Yeah.
I mean Little Mind because he doesn't get Star Trek very much, and I don't mean that. He's very intelligent. I cut Randy down a lot, but it's okay.
Hey,
so
I watched the episode
of Q
in the court.
Yeah.
And
you got it now.
Yes, yeah, that was pretty cool. That was pretty cool how they manipulated for him to give a test.
Right.
And they go down to the planet.
Right.
And yeah, that was pretty good.
Well, Charlie X had kind of powers like Q. He
Right.
could change things, and he turned someone into a lizard, and he took some girl's mouth away, and he crippled somebody, made her real old or something, and he just went completely crazy. It's like if a teenager had mind control powers, the ability to change things, that was what that episode, and it goes horribly wrong. So.
Right, because he didn't like not necessarily taking orders, but just like a teenager, an adult gives an opinion or advice, they don't want it.
Right.
And he would
fight against him.
Yeah, lose his mind over it.
And he wouldn't attack Kirk because he feared Kirk,
Yeah.
which fear turned into respected kind of a situation. So this episode goes on, and he puts the Enterprise flying out of the galaxy and all this. Then he finds out, well, I want you to take me to Starbase blankety blank because there's hundreds of thousands of people there, and I can fuck with them, you know?
Yeah.
So they trick him into stopping, and then the adults of his species come at the end and take him away.
Right.
I want to stay. Remember it echoed like that? Yes. I love it. There's nothing. I love all.
Is that the one where the planet was sucking them in?
No, that was an earlier episode called the Naked Time.
Oh, okay, I like that one.
It made their mind go crazy, and we talked about this on another episode. And it gave them symptoms of being drunk.
Yeah,
and it was because the planet was shrinking because it was disintegrating.
And the doctor worked the entire episode trying to figure out
what was going on.
Yeah,
that was another good. There's some stinkers of original Star Trek episodes. People hate on an episode called Spock's Brain. Okay. And it's a third season. They only did 3 seasons. There was only 79 episodes of the original Star Trek ever. Spock's Brain, alien species, steals Spock's brain and leaves him an empty shell with no brain. He could still walk and all that stuff. But they took his brain and used it as their power plant because it had the mind ability to control the oxygen and power and all that stuff. So that was another great episode. Everybody makes fun of that episode, but it's really awesome.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I have noticed, what Trekkies like about it is not the action, really.
No.
There's a lot of thinking on how they get out of these situations. And, I'm an action person, but when I watch these, I'm like, okay, this is not what I would typically, if I sat down and watched one episode, I probably would not carry on.
Right.
Okay? But now, talking to you and actually getting into it, I think I'm 5 or 6 episodes in, and I really find it interesting, even though, to me, the graphics are cheesy. But we are talking about the 60s, too. When they're on the planets and stuff, God, it looks so fake. The rocks and the...
They all look the same.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so...
Well, there's an episode, and I talk about it, I got the Gorn, the lizard guy that Kirk fights. It's called Arena. And they film it outside of Los Angeles in a desert called Red Rock. And they have that one big rock that looks like it's pointed, and it's in almost every science fiction movie they use that because it's still within Los Angeles' county's area, so they don't have to pay they stick paying the same taxes and
Right.
stuff to film, because if they went out, it would cost them more.
Right.
That's why a lot of science fiction plays. You can see it in Galaxy Quest. You can see it in a lot of other movies.
Right.
So,
and that's a good fight between
right,
the Gorn and
yes. Now, they screwed the Gorn up, but we'll get into that. We'll go into that now. Let's change gears or back up in warp speed. You've watched season 1 of Star Trek Discovery?
I have, yeah.
And you know that's set almost 50 to 100 years before your menagerie and your cage and all that, right?
It is, but you seem to always bring up you don't like the way they film the Star Wars, but yet they're starting to do it now.
Right.
With Star Trek. They're going backwards. Yes.
They've been going backwards on Star Trek for a long time.
Right.
But my thing is that are you okay? Because you haven't watched all the original episodes from the 60s. The technology, like you just mentioned, it's corny and the planets look silly. But now they go and you back up 75 years, maybe 50. I don't know what the timeline is, to Star Trek Discovery, and they got all this flashy shit and holograms and all this, and the planets look awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
When I first started watching it, I liked it because I felt like it was new and clean. But now that I'm going back and watching the older ones and then finding out that this show came before then, I think they screwed up. They had a good chance.
They should have went forward instead of backwards.
Right. Well, or they should have made it look like
the original Star Trek.
You know, like you said, extension cords hanging down in the back of some of the
Christmas lights and lighting up stuff.
Right.
Everything.
I feel like maybe they could have helped some of the Trekkies embrace this if it looked like the past.
Now, I'm going to bring up something. I don't know if you noticed it. I don't think you've watched second season of Discovery
I
yet.
have not.
Well, they actually show the interior of the Discovery, which is the spaceship,
Okay.
And how the turbo lifts work. And it looks like a roller coaster. It goes up and it rolls down and does this and blah, blah, blah. Well, in the original Star Trek, all it is like, they'd walk in and grab that little thing and they go, woo, and they never showed it. And they just showed the little light and then it'd move this way. Well, in Discovery, it shows how this works. And Lori saw that and she was like, oh my God, they're showing us how the turbo lifts work. I'm like, no. That is not how a turbo lift's an elevator, not a fucking roller coaster ride. It's like Willy Wonka's elevator in there, you know? And I'm like, they're seeing, people are going to hate me when I say this. There are a little bit I like about Discovery. I like the hat tips to the original series. They leave canon. They throw that canon, which is the way that things are supposed to be made and look, into the freaking garbage can.
Yeah.
So, but I like it. I like season 2 a little bit better than season 1. But, you go into the original Star Trek, you're talking about they didn't have very much budget for it.
Yeah.
There, you could see plywood panels in the background. I mean, when they brought out the HD version and they modified a lot of the look, because they've done that. If you watch the very original that actually aired on television, it's not as cool. Because when they come up with a ship like, Mr. Sulu, I want you to focus in on that ship that's coming in, and it'd just be this little dot coming up now. And the remastered versions, they actually show it's a Klingon ship or another spaceship or something. Yeah. Technology, they've added it on to the original Star Trek, which I have friends that hate on that, but I think it's great. The ships are not completely designed and everything, but it's just beautiful. I started watching an episode last night on MeTV, which is comes on I think it's 8/2, or if you don't have cable, on Antenna TV, and they show a Star Trek episode at around 10 o'clock on Saturday night. And I sit there and I watched the beginning of it because we had yesterday we celebrated our anniversary, and we came back kind of late, and I was laying in bed watching it, and I made it through as much as I could of it.
Was it because you were tired, or because
it was because I was tired, and I've only seen the episode like 80 something times, But,
gotcha.
But I was just even there as I was going to sleep, and show the Enterprise, and it was I'm trying to think. It was I can't think of the name of the episode, but it's the one where they talk about the Constitution of the United States, and they go to this planet, and the Starship Exeter is in orbit, and they beam Kirk and the crew beam on, and the crew is all crystallized, and it's just their costumes left, and they beam down on the planet and find out that it's the Yangs and the Calms, which is the communist and the Yankees.
Right.
Which is like we had the American Revolution kind of a thing, and they had a whole tribute to the Constitution at the end and everything. It was really great. But I loved it because I remember watching that episode for the first time years ago when it was on television before they remastered.
Right.
I'm like, you can actually see the stains in their uniforms. They drink coffee off set or whatever and spill it on. Yeah, it fine tunes it really good, you know. But
real quick to go back to Discovery.
Yes.
Okay. So one of the things that I noticed between the two that was because Discovery I liked when I first saw it. Mm-hmm. Okay. So when in the old original Star Trek and they do the beam me up, there is a dramatic time lapse in how long it takes for it to beam.
Right.
Where I feel like in Discovery it's instant.
And that's another.
And if it's 75 years prior to that, that's one of those things that they missed on.
They have not perfected transporter technology even in the original Star Trek
Yeah,
with
they had
Captain Kirk.
issues,
But now in Discovery, it's like, woo, flashy. And there's all this and there's all these other issues that are being thrown in that, I'm okay with the doctor and the engineer guy being same-sex relationship. I'm good with that. I don't hate on that. I just don't like it. It seems like they really focus a lot on it. I don't like it like that.
It had its own episode, I want to say, too, where almost the entire episode was about that, where they're like trying to force feed it to you.
And I get it. It's their character development. It happens with all of them. Like The Next Generation, every other episode was a Worf episode, or every other episode was Data trying to be human. And I get that. But it's just things like that. The original Star Trek with Kirk and crew did not really focus on those hard issues. They focused on alien issues, and that's the way that they would bring real life issues into Star Trek. Like they went to the planet with the guys that were black on one side and white on the other, and they were wondering why the last two survivors of this planet was fighting to the death. Mm-hmm. And he's like, he goes, "Don't you?" And the guy who was played by Frank Gorshin, which was the Riddler in the original Star Trek. Okay. There's a lot of old stars in Star Trek. He's like, "But Captain, don't you see? Loki is black on the right side. I'm white on the right side." So they did a whole race thing,
of course.
Trying to say, but they didn't do it like on the ship where, because Star Trek, Starfleet's supposed to be so sophisticated that they've gotten rid of race, prejudice, things like that, blah, blah, blah. Because, that's the way it happened. So that's the way they would bring things into the original Star Trek. Discovery, hell, let's go talk to our gay doctor and his gay lover and blah, blah. I'm like, no, because that ain't the way how Star Trek works. And don't hate on me. I'm okay with it. And when you watch season 2 of Discovery, there's a big deal about it.
Is it?
Oh
my
yeah.
goodness.
Because the doctor got killed by, was it Takovma?
Yeah.
The guy that's the human. He's a big part in Star Trek Discovery. So
isn't there also something to do with, golly, it's been a while since I've seen it. 2 of the guys on the ship are trying to have a baby and they're the messed up faces, or am I thinking of something else?
You're thinking of something else. That don't sound familiar.
They're like...
There was no 2 same-sex.
One of them doesn't... They're a creature. They're not a human.
Oh. I don't know. That doesn't sound familiar.
One of the guys that are brown with the big ears, one of them works there and the other lives...
Ferengi's. That's Deep Space Nine.
Oh, that's Deep Space Nine?
Yeah,
okay, so I saw a couple episodes.
But they're intergalactic pimps. They're all about women and stuff. So.
Right. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, there was something else I was going to bring up about Discovery. Oh, how do you feel Roddenberry would feel about them having orgies in Discovery?
Wait a minute. Do you hear that? Every time a Star Trek Discovery episode plays, Gene Roddenberry rolls over in his grave. That's what that noise you hear in the distance. That thunder, it's not. It's Gene, the great bird of the galaxy, Roddenberry, rolling over in his grave. Fans, like Discovery or not, or any of the other Star Treks, they have a lot of problem. When Gene Roddenberry passed away, new people took over and said, well, we're going to do it this way. But Gene Roddenberry had a set vision for the way Star Trek was supposed to be. It's supposed to be a utopian society. No renegades. There's no supervillains. There's no, I don't want to say supervillains. There's villains, but there's no renegade, turncoat, Starfleet officers. Everybody gets along. Everybody makes the same pay grade. Everybody. It's socialistic sounding, but
Right.
I've been doing a lot of studying on that, and it's beyond socialism.
So when you say renegade, are you referring to, like, say the Abrams movies?
Okay.
Kurt seems like a renegade.
Yes.
Is that what you're referring to?
No. I'm talking about straight up people changing sides and wanting to overthrow the captain and
I got you.
Mutiny kind of stuff.
I got you. Okay.
You mentioned Deep Space Nine, the Maquis. They're all renegade Starfleet officers that didn't believe in what Starfleet stood for, so they went and made their own thing.
Yes.
It's called the Maquis.
Right.
And it was all about them not liking a race called the Cardassians. So they stepped away from Starfleet because we don't agree with that, and we're going to do our own thing.
Right.
Gene Roddenberry did not want that in his galaxy.
I got you.
Or his universe. So, but Gene Roddenberry was a genius. He's created this. He used to write a lot of westerns.
I did not know
Have
that.
Gun Will Travel and Paladin.
I had no clue.
Oh yeah. You don't even know any of those shows, do
No,
you? They're
I
old
don't.
black and white westerns.
Yeah.
They're from the old days, But I want to get back on the Discovery thing. I'm not hating on what goes on there. It's just they're coming at it in a different way than original Star Trek would come back on it. So even with J.J. Abrams, when he did the 3 new Star Trek movies, which I call the Abominations, with Chris Pine and all them.
Yeah.
In one of the movies, they tried to say that Mr. Sulu had a husband.
Right.
And George Takei, who is homosexual in real life, I'm good with that, he just said, no, Mr. Sulu is straight. He has a daughter, Demora, and all that, So we have a visitor. Hello, how are you? Let me pick her up real quick. Y'all have met my dog Kitty before. Say hello, Kitty. Hello, Kitty. I know, and I love you. She just wanted to say hello and be part of the podcast because she had a lot of fun with it. She has her Superman sweater on today, so I'm going to hand her off to Lori, who's going to come in. Happy anniversary, by the way.
Happy anniversary.
So that's... He got pissed about them trying to change the character because it's not canon. Mr. Sulu in the original Star Trek and the movies was obviously a heterosexual.
Right.
I don't give a shit if they made him gay or not. It's just stick with what.
Yes, I got you. Wait, okay, real quick. So Discovery. Oh God, I don't remember what I was going to go with that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. One thing I was going to say is that let's take. I've seen one episode, and you haven't seen any of it. Picard. Okay, real quick though. I'm not no spoilers because it is fresh out. But here's what I'm seeing. I love the Abrams movies because it's full of action. Because I grew up Star Wars, I like action. Okay, now
everybody knows
after going back, listening to you, and then starting the original, I now understand why Trekkies don't like it.
Right.
And I also
because it's different.
It is, and they're not going to like Picard.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
I'm going to love it.
I've heard the theme song opening sucks. It's like him playing his flute, which is cool. That's what that is. That is little flute he gets. Did they go into that at all?
No.
All right. Was there a scene?
You know what? They might have.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a scene where he's walking into Starfleet Command, and there's all these holographic versions of the Enterprise and other ships, and the Discovery is one of them, and then it molds into the next generation D-class Enterprise.
Right.
Okay. That's what's got a lot of my hardcore Trekkie friends pissed off because...
You talking about in the intro?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I don't know if it's the intro or not. I haven't seen it.
See, you're throwing these numbers up D-class. I wouldn't know.
Captain Picard's ship. Galaxy class.
Okay.
The ships are different. You know that.
Oh, yeah.
Let me just talk to the screen. This is why.
Yeah, there you go.
This is another example why I don't have tape on my freaking mouth right now. Okay? All right?
Yeah, I don't know the difference between the ships.
So, and that's fine. Not everybody's perfect.
I'm getting there, though.
I know you are. I'm proud of you. So, there's a scene where Picard walks in and there's a holographic ship up near the ceiling that looks like the Starship Discovery. And then all of a sudden it morphs. No, this is the original Starship. This is the original Captain Kirk. This is what the Enterprise is supposed to look like.
Okay.
But as it's been blown up or destroyed over the years, they built better classes of it. Instead of going backwards and making technology more in the past, they actually do the real thing and make technology better in the future.
Okay.
So he looks up, and there's the Discovery, and then all of a sudden it morphs into Captain Picard's Enterprise, which is the Enterprise D. Okay. So a lot of my Trekkie friends are mad because they're saying, oh, they're trying to connect Star Trek Discovery to Picard.
Okay.
Like it's in that timeline, which is effed up. So,
Okay.
Does that make any sense to you?
It does.
Okay.
Oh, They're trying to make Discovery?
They're trying to say that Star Trek Picard, which is supposed to be based on Next Generation, is actually based on, instead of the original Star Trek, it's going to Discovery, which is not original Star Trek.
Oh, I got you.
Because of all the new updated technology, and remember we were just talking about that,
Yeah, well, there's a lot of laser gun fights and explosions.
And you like that.
And I like that.
Yeah.
And the storyline to me is fantastic, but I see all kind of negative stuff on it. So.
I understand why they're making Discovery and the J.J. Abrams movies more like action-packed and stuff, because they're trying to recapture younger Star Trek fans.
Yeah.
Us older guys, we're not going to be there, even though we have most of the money to buy the merchandise.
That's right.
And to get the all-access cable. These younger people don't have that, and their mommies and daddies aren't going to give them that because, we live in another society now.
Yeah.
Well, wait, they would probably give it to them. But that's why you don't see Star Trek conventions anymore, because Star Trek... and Star Trek fans have told me this, don't have the draw. That's why Star Wars and the Avengers are getting shot up, because, no one wants to see a big fat captain in a captain's chair chasing some other old guy that was on Fantasy Island around a nebula all movie long.
Right.
Or some younger fat guy doesn't want to watch a long intro as Captain Kirk and Chief Engineer Scott are flying in a shuttle pod for 20 minutes with music playing.
Yeah, right.
See, then that's why, because we get it. Yeah. I come in here and I just play the first Star Trek movie, Star Trek the Motion Picture, because I love the music theme in it.
Yeah.
And, that's all that it is.
Dude, it's a good movie.
No, it's not. It's terrible, but it's
well.
It's
what I was going to say is that music scene I can't stand, and the lighting when they're going through the tunnel, is just so nauseating.
It wasn't a tunnel; it was a giant cloud. But I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Its name was V'ger.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. So but
based on Voyager 6.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah.
They got fell into a black hole. And some alien race found it, made it a giant space monster, pretty much. So.
But the Klingon ships coming through and disappearing is a dramatic part of that movie, and I like that movie.
Well, you love the beginning of it when the Klingon ships are coming out and they're fighting with the cloud.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
They're shooting the weird weapons at them. And I get it. It attaches to your psyche and your mental situation, But when you want to compare Star Trek, all of them, from the original series, Enterprise, Discovery, Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, which we haven't even touched on.
Right.
When you go from original series with Captain Kirk, not the movies, the television series.
Right.
The way that was supposed to be is Kirk's story with a 5-year mission, 1960s, was the basis. Next Generation was 200 years later, 100 years later maybe.
100 years later.
Technology has grown, the ships are bigger, things are different, the uniforms have changed, the mission's gotten bigger, the ships are bigger, so that storyline runs. So when that was over, before it was over, they came up with a spin-off series called Deep Space Nine. Next Generation was still going on. They actually blended the two together, and it was in the same timeline, same ships. Some of the people from Next Generation showed up, and there was story arcs back to Next Generation. Well, not back because it was in the same timeline. Then Next Generation was over. Deep Space Nine carried it for a couple years. Then Voyager came in as another spinoff. Directly from that timeline. Same characters, same uniforms, different ships, different mission. Okay. Then they go. Well, Voyager was the last in that series. That's the storyline series. It's like your Star Wars thing, okay?
Yeah.
So you have how they all arc, and you said just like Rise of Skywalker.
Right.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Or The Last Jedi. What was the last movie called? Rise of Skywalker.
Skywalker.
They tied all the old storylines together, but it was
Right.
still the same timeline.
Right.
Even the crappy first three.
Yes.
Okay. So Star Trek was doing the same thing, but then they went ahead and said, well, let's go back and do a show called Enterprise about the captain of the Enterprise before Captain Pike. Different ship, don't have it out here, looks totally different. And they did 3-4 seasons of that.
Right.
Then when the show started failing early in third season, they started trying to reach out and bring in alien species like the Andorians and the Romulans and
Right.
Tribbles and things like that. And they talked about how the Klingons, how in the original series they looked more Hispanic with no bumpy heads, and then now they have this ridges and stuff, and changed the whole attitude. So they were starting to reach out because they got desperate, and then they came up with Discovery, which is a little after Enterprise. It was like the next one in the row,
Right.
and they actually mentioned the captain, which was Archer of that Enterprise in X-01 in Discovery
Right.
a couple times. But that's what I'm saying. Don't go backwards.
Okay.
When you go backwards,
Things get messed up, right?
stick with the way things looked.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to see a turbo lift that looks like it's a damn roller coaster ride. I just want to see the guys riding up, holding the little peg going.
Was the turbo lift in the Abrams? Is
Yes.
that the tubes that?
The door goes. Shh. Shh. No, that was not the tubes.
Oh, okay.
There. No,
All
that
right.
was that was a brewer they used for the engine room. But that's
Oh,
a whole
okay.
other story.
Okay.
We're almost out of time.
We are,
too,
but
so-
real quick, my wife she grew up watching Next Generation.
Okay.
Okay, so we were watching Picard together. Even though she is diehard Next Generation, she's okay with Picard. But it was kind of weird for me to think, because she likes action movies with me, and when I was like, wow, even her is a little hesitant to say Picard is good.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And she's a big Next Generation fan. But I got a question to ask you. He's on a French vineyard.
Right.
Does that, anything in Next Generation lead to that?
Yes.
Kind of give me a rundown
Yes,
on
his
that.
family owned wine vineyards. His brother, his older brother, decided that he wanted to stay and run the family grape orchard or vineyard.
Right.
Because that's what the Picard family had done for hundreds of
Okay.
years. So Picard says, no, my calling is to go out into space and explore and
Right.
stuff. So his brother was pissed off at him because he didn't stick with the family business. So they do revisit that in a couple episodes.
Okay.
And his older brother, ends up getting killed, and Picard's nephew ends up getting killed. He was a little kid because Picard doesn't
Right.
have children, so it kind of brought the whole thing together. Because a captain of a starship, the only woman they're married to is the ship they're on.
Right. Exactly.
Yes.
All right. But one of those, the kid, I don't remember which episode, which season or series it was, but one of them finds out he has a kid, and he brings him on. Is that Next Generation, where he finds out that he was in love with a woman, and then he decided to go?
No, that was Wrath of Khan. Captain Kirk finds out that he has a son. Well, he knew he had a son, but it had nothing to do with him. So he runs into him.
Oh, that's right. Okay,
That was the movie.
It's getting.
It's
into
a lot of
this-
confusing things.
Oh, I watched Next Generation with a wife. I watched Discovery when I get a chance, and now I'm watching Picard. And every once in a while, I go back and see some of the originals. So when it's all said and done, it's all going to be just clammed together.
Well, I don't mean to put a religious spin on this, but you know how some people are religious in
Yeah.
the Bible. People
Yeah.
read the Bible from page to page, okay?
Yeah.
And some people just read different
Right.
books out of the Bible.
Yeah.
So you've just read a couple books out of the Bible,
Right.
so you're not really pasting the whole storyline
Right.
together.
Well, I
you
have
know?
a serious question.
Okay.
Because I like Picard, does that make me a Trekkie?
No.
I knew that was coming.